All right, and we are live with Yishai Fleischer and Rav Mike Feuer, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today. We're going to start our show in about a minute. So everybody who's joining us right now, thank you very much, and leave me a comment saying shalom and hello. Let me know how the sound sounds, and we're going to get to our Torah portion podcast in just a minute. Rav Mike, how you doing out there? How's your sound?
Oh, thank God. Sounds great. I'm actually going to share this even now.
Good. Share it on your Facebook, and let's get it rolling. And there's a lot of folks that are already coming in and saying hi. So everybody say hi, give us a thumbs up. I want to hear from you. And we're going to start our show in just a minute. We're going to be talking about the Torah portion of Toldot. Okay, Toldot, one of the more dramatic and also more culinary Torah portions. That's right. Ooh. So we're going to get into it. It's a culinary Torah portion. And as you can see behind me, if you're watching on the live stream, I am ensouped. I'm deep into it.
Better super nuts.
That's right. That's what you're going to get here. All right, I think we're ready to begin. I want to see any comments here. Anybody want to say hi, just to see how the sound sounds? You guys hearing us well? Audio and video are working great. Says, of course, the great Lou Weiss. Thank you very much, Lou. Good to hear from you. And that means Jordana says hi. That means we could start the show. So let's get to it.
I'm ready.
Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live from Judea and Jerusalem to the world. Wherever you are, we're connected with you, and we have an awesome Torah portion of Toldot, which is culinary and fraternal and blindness and trickery and husband and wife and brothers and hairy brothers. It's going to be a hairy situation, and I'm very excited about it. Rav Mike Feuer joins me all the way from Pardes in Jerusalem, and I'm in Judea right now. Rav Mike, shalom, and welcome to the show.
Shalom, shalom. As long as there's no hair in the soup, then
that's right.
I will be fine with whatever comes.
That's right. And we're going to get to this sticky situation in just a second. When we talk about the Torah portion of Toldot, now this is the Torah portion in the book of Genesis, the book of Bereshit, which really deals with the life of Yitzchak. Life of Yitzchak and the life of Rivka. This is their parsha. Other biblical heroes of the forefather variety have usually two Torah portions, like Avraham, but really 2.5. But here Yitzchak, he really is his whole life, except for the Akedah, except for the Torah portion of the binding, is really concentrated in this Torah portion. And then next Torah portion will already take it off to Yaakov and that whole epic. But the Yitzchak story is very concentrated, and it's very pregnant. It's very filled with these tales.
Intended.
That's right, pun intended. That are really depictive of the Yitzchak character, which is a bit of a hidden character. Okay, we're gonna have to tease out who this Yitzchak is from very, very few words that the Torah is going to tell us about them, but every word is worth a lot. And if you look kind of into it deeply, you'll understand the character behind it. So this is the Torah portion begins. These are the generations of Yitzchak, son of Abraham. Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak, and he took Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, the Aramite. This is going to be important later. The Aramite from Padan Aram. From this place called Padan Aram, and we'll get to that, why that's important later. But Padan Aram, if anybody just wants to know where that is basically where the city of Haran is, which is also known as Aram Naharaim. It's almost all the same area, which is northern Syria, southern Turkey. Okay, and
up
that's
kind of left.
Up and to the right a little bit. Up and to the right, if you're looking on the map, up and slightly to the right, and it's right before like the Turkish mountain ranges. That's basically, I've been kind of looking into it. That's where it is. In any case, that is where Lavan and the family of Rivka are from. That's where Rivka is from. We're going to get back to it. That's going to play a major role at the end of the Torah portion and then later in subsequent Torah portions. In any case, but she is an Aramite. She's from there.
Aramean.
An Aramean. That's right. An Aramean. That's right. And she is the sister of Lavan. So the foreshadowing here is that she is as wily. She may be holy, but she is as wily as Lavan is in her ways, but not wily enough to have a child. And that's why Yitzchak prayed for his wife. And then kind of one of the only times in the Torah where it says this, that somebody prayed opposite his wife for a child, and God answered him. Famous Rashi there is to say that a child of a righteous person is not the same as a child of a righteous person, son of a righteous person, is not the same as just a righteous person. There's something very powerful.
It's specifically their prayer because, I mean, as you pointed out, on a certain level, Rivka had a tremendous merit. The sages call her, Shoshana ben Achochim. She was like the lily amongst the thorns, in the sense that she was raised in this house of, let's say, questionable culture, and yet she came out righteous. So on that level, she has a status which doesn't belong to someone who was raised by Abraham. On the other hand, the power of Yitzchak's prayer was what was able to be mahria, tip the scales in favor of a child. And I think that the meaning of that Rashi you're referring to, that Eno dome tefillah shel tzadik ben tzadik tefillah shel tzadik ben rasha, is that we should never think of prayer as a purely individual act. And something that's just often difficult to understand in the very individualistic culture we live in. But as someone like yourself who participates in daily prayer together with a community, has this sense like, wow, we've been at this for a long time. When I pray for Jerusalem to be rebuilt, I'm not just voicing my own personal desires. I'm voicing that of my father and his father, etc. And so on that level, when God brings prayer to fruition, it's not just an answer to my personal need, to Yitzchak's need or Rivka's need to have a child. It's an answer to the mission which they embody, which comes to them from Abraham.
Right. So
in that sense, the prayer of the righteous son of the righteous is going to have more impact in the world.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because from here on end, now that we have an Isaac, who, by the way, is the first conceived Jew, right? He is the first Jew to be born a Jew, and to come from a kind of holy union of Avraham and Sarah. I saw that in Rabbi Nachman, actually, that he's the first person to be born B'Kedushat Yisrael, as opposed to everybody else, as opposed to Avraham, who came into Kedushat Yisrael.
They were converts.
Right. That's right. So Yitzchak is the first born Jew. All right,
which poses its own problems.
Right, but we'll understand maybe that has something to do with the fact that he's not allowed to leave the land of Israel. We'll understand that in a little bit. We'll try to understand that. But in any case, one thing that we definitely know about Yitzchak, one thing we could tell from these first few verses, and I just want to tease out every information that we can get out, is that we see that he prays. He's lenochach means like opposite or looking at his wife. He prays for her to have a child, and God answers him in the same way. So right from the get-go, we meet a Yitzchak who is definitely prayerful and is praying to the God of Abraham, already praying to the, as you said, to the part of a long not so long, but already intergenerational.
Exactly, he's the first intergenerational prayer.
Right, but at the same time, just notice. He didn't go off the derech. He is very much in the path, and right from the get-go, we see that he is a prayerful person. And Rivka becomes pregnant, and now there are sons or something inside the womb that are fighting, deliberating, struggling.
Not enough women here.
Huh? There's not enough
room. Women here.
That's right.
Sorry.
Where's that from?
I don't know.
That is funny. I like that. I think I'm might call the show that. Not enough women here. That's good. That's really funny. In any case, they are fighting, and here's Rivka, as I've said many times, one of my favorite characters, and she says, "Why is this happening to me?" And it says, "V'telech lidrosh Hashem." She goes to demand or to seek out God, to get the answers. As in, God, what's the answer? I want the answer. I want to know exactly what's going on here. And I did a looking in the 5 books of Moses of this word lidrosh, and it is used in many different ways. Usually that God demands to find out where the blood went, if somebody was murdered, or that a court should do a figuring out of what really transpired. Investigation, or that Moses is angry and he demands to understand why something happened. And there's only one case, Rav Mike, in the whole Torah when a person goes and demands of God to get the info. Only one case. That's right. And that is this pasuk right here, that Rivka went lidrosh et Hashem.
I would not guess that. Interesting.
Yeah. She, as I said to you, she is extremely decisive and extremely, how should we say, assertive.
Right. I mean, she's got azdus de kedusha, as the Hasidim would say. She's got a holy chutzpah, which allows her to defy expectations, conventions, and to break through the barriers which might allow the world to function, but will prevent it from really actualizing its potential.
That's right.
That's a lot of what I see in her.
And so she goes to lidrosh et Hashem, like I want.
There's a very activist stance in that word,
right?
I want. Not passive.
Right. Part of it is a kind of demand. Like I want info.
Yeah. Ha'am doresh. Fill in the blank.
That's right. Ketzav Mizrachi. That's the song. I know what you're talking about. Now, Maven Yavin. Okay, that's right. Okay, so but God answers her either through a prophet or through her own prophecy, and He says, there's going to be 2 nations within your womb, and 2 nations are going to separate from your innards. And now it's kind of tricky. One nation will separate from another, and the older one will serve the younger, or the older one will enslave the younger. Both are acceptable understandings.
A little bit tough one.
Right. It's like here's the answer. I'll fill it in with a question mark. Okay. Right. But one thing is clear. There's going to be a conflict between the 2 struggling children within your womb. There's an eternal tension there.
I mean, these lines, these 2 or 3 lines here, have had potentially more impact on Jewish history than any other lines that we could easily pull out from the Torah. I mean, this is the heart of what I, in my history teaching, call the hermeneutic battle. That question of whether the line is meant to be read, the elder will serve the younger, or the elder will enslave the younger, or then, of course, who's actually the elder. As we see in momentarily, Esav comes out first, but Yaakov is holding his heel, and Rashi will bring this midrash that actually Yaakov was holding his heel because Yaakov was actually conceived first and therefore wanted to be born first in order to keep things neat, etc. This will play itself out in a relationship first with Rome and then Christianity, right? To the point where in certain ways we're still duking it out now. Who really is meant to inherit the birthright? Who can tell the story in a way in which will get us to where we're meant to go? And it all begins with Rivka's need to know. And on one hand, it's important because it guides her actions, as we'll see in the parsha. On the other hand, I can't help but wondering sometimes maybe it's better not to ask and sort of let God take things in its right course. Right. There's a lot of pain that comes from this knowledge.
That's right. But like Yosef, Rivka is a character that moves history along.
Oh yes.
Okay. There are some players that are more in this. God will lead me, and I'll go the way God sets out for me. And other people understand themselves being the kind of people that have to move the story along and really take almost radical, but certainly like nudge history in such a way that things really happen.
It's definitely radical for sure.
Right. She is one of the more radical players. Really, the only one other like that I would see is Joseph, who will taunt his brothers and send them this way and that way and really create a whole drama in order to facilitate what he understands is what history needs. But not everybody's like that. Not most people are not like that. Sometimes there's this like agitating character or what's the word I'm looking for? A catalyst character.
Yeah.
And she is, in my mind, that kind of catalyst character. In any case, it's time for her to give birth. And the first son is going to come out Admoni, ruddy. Kulo ke'aderet se'ar. He's like a sweater vest. He's like a totally sweatery. I used to have this guy in the army. A Russian guy. His name was Sverletov. I used to call him Svedertov, which was a good sweater. But in any case, that's Esav. He's like a sweater, and his name was Esav, which I think you point out every year that he was already Asui, completed.
He's the self-made man, right? Which we've spoken about many times. He gives a lot to his character. That one thinks self-made man is sufficient, but the reality is, once you're self-made, then it's also self-maintained. And so we see he's a trapper, he's a hunter, he's constantly running around after accomplishments. Whereas Yaakov will be characterized as each Tom. He's just kind of like complete, and therefore he can be at rest a little bit more easily.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I would have thought the other way, kind of. I would have read it the other way. I'd be like, if you're complete, then you're more at kind of peace with the now, as opposed to being incomplete, and therefore you're always yearning for a completion. like Data wanting to become human or something like that. Okay, it's like
Well,
you're
the difference between asui and tam is very important. Asui implies that with the process that you're done. Tam is there's just a wholeness there.
right.
So
And but
yeah,
let's get to the next point, where she comes out grasping the foot of Yaakov comes out grasping the foot of
the
Esav,
heel,
the heel.
specifically the heel, right?
Right, he's grabbing the heel. I mean, that is a visual. I mean, really,
Yeah, oh yeah.
you know what I mean? That is a visual, like holding onto the heel. It's like, and then he's named like after the heel, Yaakov.
Yeah.
Right, which is like Akov Yaakov, which is like it will be you'll be on the heels of, like we say in English, right? You'll be chasing the
Always dogging his heels.
right, and so if anything, that's exactly the opposite of done. It's like in search of on the journey, and in fact, Yaakov's life will be marked by being on a journey. And the very minute he tries to stop being on the journey, he'll get in trouble for that. This is a man on a journey in this world, as opposed to Esav, who says, why would I need something in the next world? Why do I need something later on when I need something right now? I'm not on a journey. I'm here now. It's like the here and now, as opposed to the goal of the hereafter.
Yeah, I'm interested in doing, not going somewhere.
Right.
And it's important to note in that sense that Yaakov is going to shed or struggle to shed that side of his identity when he becomes Yisrael, but that we'll get to when we get to later Parshiot.
Okay, and so we're going to learn about another essential difference, which is that Esav is, when they grow up, he is a hunter, a person of the field, but Yaakov is an ish tam, is a simple or whole person who sits in tents, which is usually means also, it could either mean like studies Torah, or it could also mean that he's actually a cattleman or a herdsman. As opposed to a hunter farmer, he's a flock manager. All right,
Pastoralist.
a pastoralist. That's right. Now we also learned that Yaakov loved, past tense, Esav or Esau, and because he has hunt in his mouth. However, Rivka loves, in the present tense, Jacob. There's a present tense love for Jacob. I want to tell you, by the way, a little tiny story that I remembered last night as I was thinking about the show today with you, Rav Mike. Many years ago, I was in law school, and at midterms, after midterms were done, we had like 2-week break. I actually had a mental fry out. I burnt a transistor in the brain. I just couldn't deal with it. I think I might have told you the story before, but in any case,
Yeah, it's okay.
I remember, yeah, I remembered it last night again, and I remember that like I crawled out of bed and I got myself a flight ticket to Florida, and I rented a car from El Cheapo Cars. It was like the silliest car rental place, but I remember the car very well. It was the old kind of Toyota Corolla, and I was driving. I finally got to. I was just like nowhere. Finally, I got to this place called Valhalla, which is in one of the Keys. That's right. It was literally called Valhalla. It's on the Florida Keys.
Seventh realm, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and anyway, whatever. So it was Shabbat, and it was exactly the kind of place I was looking for, because it had everything was like old school,
non-electric.
Non-electric. It's just a motel in a beautiful, beautiful place. Subsequently, years later, my brother and the family kind of went to that place, and they found it, and they stayed there for Shabbat. They had a great time. In any case, and I was laying in a hammock, and I was really like, and my brain was just fried out. Anyway, suddenly I hear the Bible being read, and there's this like family sitting there reading the father is reading the Bible. It was a Christian family, not a Jewish family, certainly. And I just walked up to them, and they just looked at me like, who's this guy? And I'm like, I hear you reading the Bible. Do you mind if I sit down and listen? That's weird, right? And they were like, yeah, okay. And I sat down, and they're reading exactly this part, this part. And I said to them, like, and he said, and he read, and that's why he was named Edom. And I'm like, I said to them, well, do you know what the word Edom means? Because the English translation didn't translate. I said to them, it means red. And here's his whole life, the red soup, and that he himself is ruddy, etc. And then later on, King David is going to challenge him because he's red, and that whole kind of thing. And they were just like, oh my God. And then I told them that I was a Jew from the land of Israel. I was a Jew. I wasn't from the land of Israel. That I was Jewish. They were like, a Jewish person teaching us the
Here?
Bible. But they were just like they thought they. I'm not exaggerating. They thought that an angel had come to. I'm not talking about me now. I'm talking about the Jewish person to come and teach them the Bible. They were just flabbergasted. They were amazed. That also taught me, by the way, that there are many people in this world that really do love the Bible, and they are really connected to the stories of the Bible, and believe that Israel is exactly what you think it is, which is God's people that have come back to the land, and without a lot of like theological baggage, like in the simple, plain read of the text. And those were one of them. I even remember they were from Cooperstown, where the baseball museum is. In any case, Coopersville, whatever it is. In any case, that really taught me a lot, that lesson. But it was exactly about this part. And exactly here we learn that that Yaakov is making this. You see the soup behind me. Anybody who's watching with us, and I already got Lou asking Yishai. My wife wants the recipe for that red soup in the background. Lou, I advise you to type in red lentil soup into Google.
That's not a lentil soup. I can't handle it.
It is a lentil soup. Okay, it's got minestrone elements, but that is definitely red lentil. I found it under red lentil soup. All right. In any case, but I hear what you're saying. Google lied. It's true. And there might have been voter fraud when it comes to this. I don't know. In any case, in fact, when I pulled this up, there was like a little line underneath that said,
"We cannot confirm that this is actually majority lentil."
You know what I wrote on Twitter? I'm like, why do you keep writing that like the veracity of the tweet above is unconfirmed? Isn't that like everything on Twitter? What is it? Why don't you just write that everywhere? I didn't think that when I was reading some jihadis.
Listen, don't think that that's just a cutesy comment, because the reality is, never forget that Twitter is not a public utility. It's a private enterprise. Right. In which case, the ability to cast doubt indirectly also affirms. That's what you're pointing out, is that when there's certain things which are flagged as questionable, the implication is that anything which is not must be true. It's tremendous power. It's a tremendous power that's being wielded by very few people who have, a very definite worldviews, as do the rest of us.
You know, Rav Mike, it turns out that the internet, which was this gateway towards information and truth, is also a gateway for a tremendous amount of disinformation. Misinformation, certainly, but also disinformation.
Listen, the sort of quasi-messianic aura that the tech industry sometimes wields is a big mistake. It's a tool like anything else. And if I have a super sharp knife, I can make a fantastic salad, or I can cut your fingers off. Right. It's the same tool. The question is who's wielding it toward what end?
Yeah. When you're I think most people that are listening to the program have never felt themselves to be on the other end of a smear and lie campaign. But as a Hebron settler, right, I can tell you that, like, I understand what it means when Twitter lies, when YouTube lies, and especially when Wikipedia lies. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a painful one. When Wikipedia is lying to you, you're like, this world is a dark place. And I've been on the wrong side of a Wikipedia battle twice.
Assault.
Once personally, it's not even assault. It's because they're not even assaulting you. They're just saying this is truth, and what you're saying is not truth, and they're erasing your truth.
I would say that's one of those brutal assaults which can occur.
Seriously, that. And when UNESCO tells you that Marat HaMachpelah, the tomb of the ancestors, is actually a Palestinian World Heritage Site, when they tell you, no, you didn't write this thing, or you didn't do this thing, or you're like, here's a newspaper article, I did this thing. Nope, sorry, we decided it's not true. Or when they tell you that Hebron is, a Palestinian city, and the settlers there are these evil, entity. It's an amazing thing, really, to be on the other side of that. It teaches you not to trust. I think a lot of other people listening to us would be like, don't trust? That's weird. But when you experience it, you're like, aha. Anyway, yes, let's get back to the Torah portion. So comes Esav from the field, and he says, and he's tired. And tired also means in the Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, means hungry. Ayef means hungry, not always tired. In any case, he says, give me some of that red stuff. Give me some of that red soup. I'm not exactly into the finer things right now. I cannot describe to you what I'm seeing. I'm not going to say the word lentil or minestrone like Rav Mike. I just want, give me the red stuff. Just give me the red stuff.
Pour it down my throat.
Right, like in modern terms, we would say, what do you call it? Give me the IV of the red stuff, right?
Yeah, dish
Or
it
one
up.
of those, beer bottle hats. With the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just get it down my throat.
Yeah, how
So
tiny.
Yaakov says, yeah, no problem. Just sell me your birthright.
Yeah, it's a weird moment, huh? It's like
Um,
Yaakov's got him, sort of like it's got
well,
him over
that's that's the
the
question.
bar
Does he
here.
does he have him or not? The question is, the question is it entrapment, or does this person have does this Esav have unreasonable impulse control, lack of impulse control?
Yeah, the way I like to read this, because it's tough. I mean, listen, Yaakov has many very difficult interactions ahead. It's only the first of them,
Sets the
and
tone.
it sets the tone. And
Right.
on one hand, I'm generally not so fond of apologetics, meaning I don't feel like the text needs us to defend it, nor does Yaakov need us to defend. But on the other hand, it also the superficial reading of that really Yaakov's actually a bad guy, and this has all been some like con game that really it also doesn't bear itself out in the story as a whole.
Rav Mike,
So,
if I go into a restaurant and I'm like, I'm hungry, they're like, we'll feed you. Just give us the money. Is
well,
that is
yes,
that
but
unreasonable?
no, but I mean, to go straight for the birthright is like it's not just hey, I noticed you've got some fresh game there. Let's trade. And
Right.
so and that's why I think that what's happening here, at least in part, is Yaakov has spent his whole life growing up next to this brother. Yaakov also knows the stories of coming out, being born, gripping his heel. He may even have been told by his mother, remember his mother loves him, the prophecy which she received in terms of like who's in charge here. And in seeing the qualities which his brother brought to the fore, I think he's holding a question. He's my older brother. Is he really fit to be the Bechor, to have the birthright? Well, here's an opportunity to test.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's very
Here's an
good.
opportunity, and I see this as a testing moment
Right.
in which he says, "Oh yeah, you want some food?" I mean, all Yosef had to say is like, "Are you crazy? I
Right.
just want a bowl
Or
of
say
lentils." Yeah,
or
okay, fine.
say
So give me the deer that you caught, or whatever
right.
it was.
Or yeah, exactly. Let's negotiate it. No, I can't do that. But let's negotiate. But it's actually what Asaph says. I think I really 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 like what you just said. I really like that a lot. It's a real great test. I like that. That's such a better framing. I really like that framing a lot. It's like I'm putting a test to you. Do you want to trade a bowl of soup for your birthright?
And by the way, one of the
No.
indications is that he says, "Swear to me," meaning he doubles down. He doesn't say, "Okay, get done deal here." He says, "No, swear to me." And you have to appreciate in biblical language when he says, right, I'm looking for the language. Hishavali kayom.
Right.
That is a tremendously heavy act, which he's doing, and
Right.
he's also giving him an out. He's like, "Sell it to me." Yeah, fine, I'll sell it to you. What do I care?
Right.
Swear to me. It's also a way of saying, do you really mean this? Are you really willing to bind yourself that deeply so you can fill your belly?
Right.
And the answer is yes, and then that in itself proves itself.
Very good. Very good. That's a great point. And the Torah will say that Yaakov gave him lentils, he gave him bread, and he ate. And this is a very fast succession of verbs: vayochal, vayesht, vayakam, vayelech, vayivez.
Yeah.
He ate, he drank, he got up, he left, and he spurned
Earned. Yeah.
spurned the birthright. So I think your framing is excellent, which is it was a test for you, and you had many outs,
Yep.
but you took it. In any case, the next section is about. Now, I heard a very convincing explanation yesterday that this section is actually before the birth of Esav and Yaakov, for the very simple reason that Rivka is seen here by the Philistines as an attractive woman, and they believe the
Could be a
story that
sister,
right that is
not
a
the mother
sister,
of twins.
right, not the mother of twins who are making a lot of noise and constantly fighting. Break
Yeah.
up, you two! How many times do I have to tell you? Yaakov,
Right.
you go to your corner. Esav,
Could you
stop
imagine trying
biting.
to manage Yaakov and Esau when they were
That's right.
toddlers? I mean,
Nobody likes a biter. That's actually Rivka was the originator of that term.
that's for sure true.
Nobody likes a biter. That's right. In any case, in this section, Yitzchak goes down to the original Philistines, to Grar, which is basically Gaza, basically the Gaza area, and
It's pronounced
really,
Gar.
Gar. That's right. Gar. Okay, and now Grar is the way in that you travel down to Egypt.
Yes.
Because you don't go through the Beersheba desert and then into the Sinai and then through the Sinai try to cross over into Egypt. A, you're going to hit the Red Sea, and B, you're not going to go through that desert. Yeah, you're not going to make it. The way you go down to Egypt is what we call the Via Maris, which is via
Sea route.
the sea route. That's right. You go next to the sea, which is cooler, which is nice, there's water, etc. So there's fish, that's right, there's food, and there's life. So he's heading down to Egypt. God intervenes and he says, no, don't go down to Egypt. Live in this land that I tell you. Live here, I'll be with you. For kilecha ulezarecha eten et kol haratzot ha'el. These lands I will give to you and your seed. You've got to live here, and I will fulfill the promise that I made to your father Abraham. This goes back to what you said before, which is from here on, we're always looking back to the promise to Abraham, and then the promise to Abraham and Isaac, and then finally Moses will recall the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay,
right.
So we are always looking back to the original promises, and therefore Yitzchak never leaves the land. And the sages explain really that there's something special about Isaac, as I said before, kind of the firstborn Jew, but also a person who almost was sacrificed on the altar, and therefore is a how should we say it? A kind of
He's an Ola Tamima.
right.
He's got the sanctity of a whole offering, meaning he's devoted property. He doesn't get trotted out.
He's sanctified.
He's sanctified. I mean, if you think about it, there are sacred things which we don't expose in certain situations. I mean, whether it's for those of us who are observant Jews, I wouldn't just bring out my tefillin and sort of like leave them around, or a Sefer Torah, certainly not. Or I think everybody has elements of sacred property which are special and are brought out in devoted times amongst intimate relations, and so he is to God this portion in the world right now.
By the way, I just saw my brother Josh saying, great discussion, I love you guys. And I want to thank my brother Josh so much for this setup. Josh. And Josh hooked me up with a different setup in my studios here, and that's why you could see so nicely the light on my face and the soup in my background. So there you go. So thank you to my awesome brother Josh, who is
so amazing. Light in your face and soup in your background, and not the opposite.
Amen. My brother Josh is a amazing photographer and a exceptional videographer, and it's a pleasure to live close by to him, and also my sister and my mom. Thank God, and I really want to bless everybody being close to their family. In the good land. In any case, let's get back to Yitzchak. Yitzchak almost gets his wife taken away, but better than Avraham, she never gets taken away. Also, he doesn't tell the story that she's a sister until he's asked. He doesn't proffer that up. And I was learning yesterday that in many ways he's doing better than his father Abraham. And then when the Philistines kick him out and subsequently ask him for a treaty, he doesn't give them an oath, a brit, a covenant. He gives them an oath, So he doesn't give them a covenant, but he gives them an oath. Meaning to say he's careful not to overdo it. Some of the commentators said that Abraham overdid it when he made a covenant with the Philistines. Right. Isaac does not fall for that trap. And generally, we see him as kind of silent, but becomes great. And there's a wonderful verse here, which interestingly doesn't even have his name. It says, V'gdal ha'ish, the man grew. V'yelech haloch v'gadel, and he went forward and grew. Ad ki gadal me'od, until he became very great indeed.
Really big.
Yeah, he became great. And then at that point, something set in, which is jealousy. And the Philistines kick him out, because they can't live with him together. And he goes on and he does something amazing, which he digs the wells. He'll dig a few of his own wells, but first he'll dig out the wells of his father's wells that were stuffed up by the Philistines. To me, this is an amazing thing. Like, if you want to understand what the Philistine character is, it's to stuff up wells. Jealousy and to stuff up wells.
I mean, it's important to remember that the Philistines in the Bible, the Plishtim, means invaders.
Right.
Right? They were likely, historically speaking, part of the Phoenician peoples that spread after the fall of the island-based sort of Cretan Empire. Likely, it's not definitive, but either way, meaning they're not native to the land. They don't see themselves as caretakers of the land. They're coastal militant people who are just looking to accumulate and dominate. So therefore, the type of relationship that Avram had begun to cultivate with the land of when you dig wells, it's true you're using them for yourself, but they become a utility for society as a whole, and Yitzchak in that sense really is the first one to enter into conflict over the land. Right? The Plishtim say, like, these wells don't serve our immediate purposes, get rid of them. Yitzchak says, whoa, the land needs these wells. I represent a relationship with this land which is going to continue for thousands of years, and therefore I'm going to unstop them.
Right. But if there's a force in this world that is entropic, which is, trying to devolve things into their base elements as opposed to building them up.
It's thermodynamics.
That's in this house, we follow the rules of thermodynamics. And what I'm saying is that, to me, the Philistines stopping up the wells is a very big testament to their character, which is not a character of building. It's not a character of sharing. It's a character of, like, stuffing up wells is like, in the Middle East, and I think anywhere, it's like, why would you stop? It's called in this week's parsha Be'er Maim Chaim. It's a spring of life.
Yes,
why would you stop those
life.
up? Right.
Yep.
It's exactly the opposite, and it's like Isaac was so amazing that he was able to find those wells that his father had dug and unstuff them up, like reopen those channels.
Which, by the way, had to be a lot of work.
Sure. Holy moly. Finding them. I mean, just you have to really imagine the desert, what it's like, and really figuring them out. And then big giant rocks had been thrown down there, and just to pull it up and open those channels again. It's like I feel like like an Asian thing. Like let's go into a healing and find the channels that have been stuffed up. And here comes Yitzchak, and he's stuffing those up, and then he's gonna find three other wells, and the Ramban very famously likens them to the three temples. But finally, in the third one that he finds, everybody's messing with him. Every time he finds a well, everybody's jealous of him. They fight with him. He names those wells after that jealousy and those conflicts. Finally, the third well that he finds, which is, I think, Rabbi Simcha Hachbaum told me, I didn't check it myself, Rabbi Simcha Hachbaum in Hebron told me that this is the sixth well that was found, if you count Abraham's wells, but I didn't count it myself, so I'm not sure. But he says it was the sixth well, which makes sense to me because the next well that you find is Beersheba. Right, the seventh well.
Interesting.
But I didn't check it myself, so I can't say it definitively. But in any case,
Simcha Hachbaum is to be trusted on.
Absolutely. Although there was like a little tag underneath him, which said everything that I say cannot be verified. Some have controverted those claims. In any case. This well that he finds is called Rechovot. How would you translate it? Wide spaces.
Right. Wide open spaces.
That's right.
Yeah.
And today there's a town called Rechovot, which has the famous Institute of Science named after Chaim Weizmann.
Yeah, and it's also, Rechovot in biblical Hebrew has a deep power, because we talk about Mina Metza Kratiyah, Merchav Anania, right? That it's the narrowness that Yitzchak experienced in his struggles over Esek and Sitna, these sort of first two wells, were answered in this sense of breadth and abundance. And that's another piece that is very important in the difference between stopping up wells. Why do you stop up wells? Because there's not enough. You have a sense of scarcity. Other people are going to come around. They won't be able to handle, et cetera, et cetera. But Yitzchak's perspective is a perspective of abundance. It's like, open up the wells, man, live, grow, breathe. Right. There's plenty of space for all of us, and God answers him as such.
You say it very good, and I want to add to that there are verses in this week's Torah portion that are very much like you just described, this sense of abundance. So you have this Rechovot, and you have that year he found, he
planted and returned Mea Sharim. 100 measures. 100 Which measures. Is important to note that the neighborhood is not named 100 gates.
That's right.
Named 100 measures.
Right, 100 measures.
100-fold.
Right, but there's a play on words there because it is
Obviously, so, yeah.
there's
The
gates
biblical
there.
reference, I know, but the
Right.
biblical reference is here.
That's right, and there's like 100 blessings, 100-fold blessings. We also have a halacha to try to say 100 blessings a day, and the Baal HaTurim really kind of says this is the big segula. This is the big thing. If you could say 100 blessings a day, it's a very powerful thing. And if you say all of your prayers and all the stuff, you're supposed to get to 100 blessings a day. I think there's a missing app there. I think there's a missing
definite app.
There's an app. If somebody can do a 100 blessings a day app, that'll be strong. In any case, and then there's Rechavot, and then there's that verse that we read before that the man grew at ki yigdal me'od, he grew very much. So you're totally right. Like there's something about Yitzchak which is on the one hand a little bit what's the word? Laconic, not using a lot of words. He is laconic to me, strong and silent, but he is a man of like there's how did you say, like there's width, there's what was the word you said?
I mean, listen, part of it I think is rooted in his experience that he gave himself over completely to God.
Right.
It was there. It was ready. The fact that God stopped Avram from sacrificing was in the hands of God, so to speak. From that moment on, he's let go of the number one thing which narrows life for all of us, which is a sense of entitlement. See, when we walk around with a sense of entitlement, we have a hard time feeling grateful and like our life is abundant because we're always thinking we should, we have this, I deserve that. He doesn't deserve anything anymore. He shouldn't even be alive. So therefore, everything he receives is a source of gratitude and abundance.
Well, I think this is a good moment to take a pause for a second from our Torah portion and talk about abundance and talk about gratitude. And that is one of our sponsors of the show, a new sponsor, which I know that you're excited about and I know that I'm excited about. Let me bring it up here on the screen for a second. We have a new sponsor, which is Prohibition Pickle.
That's right.
Prohibition.pickle@gmail.com. And the short of it,
easy to find on Facebook as well, by the way.
That's right. Prohibition Pickle. You'll find it on Facebook and Instagram. And here's the beauty. The beauty is it's here's I got some great words here. It's Ashkenazi Delicacies Revival. This does not mean that it's only for Ashkenazim. It's for anybody who likes a good pickle or good herring and soon to come salami sandwiches. Herring. That's right. Okay, we're the craft beer of Delhi.
By the way, the mustard is not to be believed.
Right. This stuff is so good. And here's the beauty. Prohibition Pickle is a sponsor of our show. You can order it. Now, if you're living outside of the land of Israel, you certainly have friends in the land of Israel. Okay? So imagine if your friend gets a knock on the door and they get a delivery from Prohibition Pickle of
your friend
herring.
Happens to love the kitoret and the segula herrings. Your friend loves those both.
Right. You happen, Rev Mike already has a lot of experience, and I just this past Friday had a great experience of some delicious stuff, some great pickles and other things. And so now imagine if your cousin living in Rehovot or in Modi'in or Beit Shemesh or in Yerushalayim gets a knock on the door on Thursday or Friday and gets a delivery because you sent it to him or her. That is an awesome gift to send here in the land of Israel. And maybe some of your show hosts on, for example, the Land of Israel Network. I'm just saying, we'd love to get a Friday delivery. Let's say you had got a Friday delivery, Rev Mike. What would you love to see in your Friday delivery?
Ketoret, schmaltz, the segula cream herring is fantastic. The mustard's great. The pickles really can't be beat. Frankly, almost anything.
All right, so you're going to elevate your Shabbos. You're going to have nostalgia Ashkenazi food, and this is not for Ashkenazim only. There are many Sephardi people who love this kind of yummy stuff. I know downstairs here at Chabad, we love everybody there. The Moroccans and the Algerians and all the folks. We all love a good herring, and we love to trick out our kiddush. So you can be a part of that very simply by going to prohibition.pickle@gmail.com or on Facebook, Prohibition Pickle, or on Instagram. Easy enough. Order, and there's some minimums of like 3 products sometimes or 100 shekel. There's different stuff. But speak to Chaim because he's the man.
He's the man.
And the reason that I think it's so fitting is because this is the Torah portion of delicacies and gastronomical delights. Okay, this is the Torah portion for that. And how do we know? Because we had the red soup and the bread and all that. And you could tell it was probably good bread that he was able to...
No question. It's probably a bread bowl. And then
Red Bull.
Yitzchak, of course, sends Esav out to the store to get him herring before he gives him a bracha.
That's right. It wasn't exactly herring, probably, because he told him to get game. But there's going to be delights and delicacies that are prepared, and we all know that Shabbos is the best time to eat delicious food. Malka and I, we eat. Malka makes the Shabbos food. We eat it for like 2-3 days afterwards. Also, we love leftovers. Even the word leftovers is not a holy enough word for what Shabbos, the taste of Shabbos is into the week. We love it, and that's it. So you can be part of that as well. Check out their menu; it's really beautiful, and it's only going to grow. And so I love the name as well, Prohibition Pickle. So I'm proud, and I know that you're not just a sponsor. You're not a
fan, but I'm a supporter.
That's right.
And I do want to add in there that you're talking about a hardworking young man who's getting a small business off the ground in the land of Israel.
During Corona.
So it's not just a matter of the pleasures of Shabbat.
That's right.
It's really strengthening the fabric of society here. Not a small thing to do.
That's right. And since also I am a vodka person, pickles make a big difference. It's like a whole thing.
Don't forget Yishai when you're shopping this week.
That's right. That's all I'm saying here. Thank you for clearing that up. All right. So speaking
fully correct.
That's right. So speaking of delicacies, and by the way, you have friends and family here, teachers. Let's say you had a great rabbi that you studied with. Imagine sending him something, or Rebbitzin, send him something, or your cousin. It's great. Anyway, and I'm going to be doing more. I'm going to be finding more businesses like the other business that I promote, or that really promotes our show, the sponsor of our show, which is Blessed by Israel. Blessed by Israel. BlessedByIsrael.com. It's very simple. That is a way for you outside of the land of Israel to get products from the land of Israel. So you just go to BlessedByIsrael.com and they will ship out to you all kinds of stuff, like I'm already ordering for friends outside of the land of Israel, olive oil for Hanukkah. Imagine having Israeli olive oil for Hanukkah. This is the time to do it. And great tip, if you go to BlessedByIsrael.com and you type in the coupon code Yishai, you get 12% off. You're a rock star. Okay, you totally figured it out. You tricked it out. You tricked out Hanukkah by getting stuff from the land of Israel. P.S. Just so you know, Malk and I only use edible olive oil from the land of Israel for lighting our Hanukkah candles. Right. And I do not understand, and Malk and I do not understand why people don't understand that this is a hit or a mitzvah. This is a, what do you call it?
That's sort of a glorification or a beautification of the mitzvah.
Right. Yeah, you could light with, like, God bless them, Spanish, like grade B olive oil, which makes smoke on the ceiling. Mistake. Or you can do great top-level food-grade olive oil from the land of Israel. Wow, wow, wow. Now that's Hanukkah oil. Okay, I said my piece. All right, there you go. That's it. Let's go on back to the Torah. So we had this great character, Yitzchak, as you said before. He's rechavot. He's width and breadth. He's blessed. He's a source of blessing. However, his son Esav disappoints him by marrying him and his wife Rivka by marrying these two Hittite women. All right, Hittite women. One of which will give birth finally to Amalek through that, but we don't learn that in this parsha. In any case, now Yitzchak is suddenly sensing the infirmities of old age. Our sages tell us he's the first to have this kind of infirmity, and he goes blind or hard of seeing. Let's put it that way. He calls out to his older son, which is Esav, and he says, my son, and he says, Hineni, the old Hineni line in the mouth of Esav. And Yitzchak says to him, I'm now gotten old. I don't know the day of my death. In other words, I could die at any time. Now, get your gear together and go for a hunt. Bring some venison, some deer. It doesn't say that, but that's probably what we understand what he would hunt. And make me delicacies like I loved, so that you could bring it to me, I could eat it, and then my soul will bless you before I pass away. So
sounds good.
It sounds good. Like, why do you need a food bowl in order to be blessed? But that's actually understandable, isn't it? It takes you to a higher place. Just like Saul needed King David's music. It brings you up to a different place, a different spiritual place. Just like we bless our children Friday night, it's like a different energy, right?
This is a general principle throughout the Tanakh you can find, like miracles that Elisha does and tells the king to smash the arrows against the ground or to shoot an arrow out the window. It's like because the question is like why does the divine need any physical vehicle? And this is an essential principle of Torah, is that the physical world is not other than the spiritual world. The physical world is the place where the spiritual world is embodied, where it comes to rest, and therefore it becomes real. So therefore, the physical pleasure that Yitzchak will feel from eating this wonderful food is not like a bribe, or it is a vessel for a depth. Like when you're actually experiencing that type of pleasure, the power of Yitzchak is to transform that physical pleasure into a depth of spiritual power, right? And this is why, like you're pointing out, eating on Shabbat, right? That herring that we eat at Kiddush is great. It's wonderful, but it's holy as well. And as long as you have the intention to make it holy, it actually is power to transform the world.
Amen. And so, but who's behind the scenes? Back to old Rebecca,
She's listening.
The holy, but still, how did you call it? Aramean? Was that the
holy Aramean? Right?
She's holy, but she's still an Aramean. She knows how to be tricky, and she's listening into the tent. And she calls in her son, Yaakov. They're both her sons, but in this case, her younger son, but the one that we were told she loves. She says, she tells him what's up, and she says, "Now listen to me, son, and do everything I tell you." Right? This is look at this line, verse 8, chapter 27, verse 8. Vata, now, vata b'ni, now my son, shma b'koli, listen to me. La'asher ani mitzavah otcha, what I command you. Just you got to do what I say.
What I say.
Yeah, read my lips, okay?
Do not deviate.
Go to the flock, get me to goats, kids, right, which probably taste like venison, and I will prepare the food that your father loves, and you'll bring it to your father, and he'll bless you. So Yaakov is like, but my brother is a hairy guy, and I am smooth. Good question. Or is it is not the right question to say, what you talking about,
Wait,
Mama?
this is not very nice.
This is not cool, right?
We're going to lie and deceive my blind father. No, but I think the part of this I really think is what's carrying through is where you began, which is Rivka already went lidrosh et Hashem. She went to the source to figure out what's right, and this is one of the challenges, is that, and I think it's one of the reasons that not many people do it, is that once you go there, if God reveals truth to you, then you will live in relationship to it for the rest of your life. The problem is that the world doesn't always reflect God's truth, so you end up in situations like you see now, where they're going to do something which is clearly deceptive. I don't want to, like I said, I'm not interested in apologizing to that. They're deceiving Yitzchak, but why are they deceiving Yitzchak? Because God has revealed truth to Rivka. Why isn't God revealing truth to Yitzchak? I don't know. She didn't ask God that. She just, once you go for it, you have that azus kedusha to ask God what's really happening. You now can hide from it, or you can take responsibility, but you can't live in ignorance anymore.
I'm also going to say that I think that your explanation for the first Yaakov and Esav scene with the red lentil soup, in that you framed it as a test for Esav, this too is a test. It's a test to see if Yaakov could pull it off. Yeah. If Yitzchak, if we'll see in a second, I don't want to give it away yet, like what is the real blessing that Yitzchak has to give to Yaakov, and it's a test. I'm going to say this in parentheses, but it just jumped into my mind, so I'll say it. It's a parenthetical, and I want everybody to keep their chairs. Don't flip out on what I'm about to say.
I'm putting parentheses. All right, bracket.
Here's my bracket. Yeah, a parentheses and a bracket. A bracket and then a parentheses, which is with regarding to the American race right now for president. In a sense, whatever it is, whatever the game is, the Trump administration, if they are claiming that there's a lot of hanky-panky, they should have been damn ready for that hanky-panky. And if they weren't ready for it and they didn't have their whole thing set out to win, then I'm not talking about what the truth is or what the vote is. I'm talking about do you want it bad enough? And if you do, you better be ready for war against other forces. You got to want to win, and I mean even in the bad way. And if you allowed the bad guys or whoever it is, I'm not going to prejudge that. Let's say you allowed the other guys to win even with hanky-panky, and you didn't have preparations to defeat that, then you didn't want it bad enough.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
and parentheses and bracket, and you could write to me if you disagree with my foul language just now. Just write me an email, Yishai@YishaiFleischer.com or Yishai@thelandofisrael.com, and you can hit
Just
Rav
put
Mike.
boo hiss in the subject
That's right,
line.
boo hiss. That's right. And you could also write to Rav Mike @thelandofisrael.com, or his website's jewishstory.com.
Yes. No, .co.
.co, jewishstory.co, or ravmikefeuer.com.
Yes, indeed.
Very simple,
don't
very
boo hit
awesome.
me.
And great stuff there, including Rav Mike's other works, including his other show, The Jewish Story, and his spiritual counseling, which is very useful for those of us who need spiritual counseling. If you don't need it, don't use it. But if you need it, use it. Okay, let's keep going. So the question is, but I'm smooth and he's hairy, and she says to him, she answers him, V'tomer lo imo, his mother answered him, Alai kilaltcha, upon me is your curse, b'ni. The famous teaching about this is the word alai actually stands for three things, which is alai is Esav, the curse is Esav, Lavan, and Yosef, right? You're going to be challenged with those three things. That's your curse. Esav, you're going to fight him. Lavan, you're going to be tricked by him, and Yosef, you're going to lose him. That's going to be the curse that you're going to have to deal with. In any case, he goes and he does exactly what his mother says. She takes out from a special drawer the clothes of Esav, her older son. Seemingly, he kept some of his special clothes, and there's a lot of midrashim about this, at his mom's house. He didn't trust his wives. And she also, Rivka, she's going to not only cook the meat, but also take the skins, the hairy skins, and lash them somehow to the arms and the back of the neck of Yaakov, so that he can go into into Yitzchak, being hairy as well. So the deception here is like multi-level. It's the food, it's the hair, the whole thing. But one thing you can't hide is
the voice.
The voice. You cannot hide the voice. And here he's going to come into his father's tent, and he's going to say, he says, Vayomer, and he's going to say, Father, and Father's going to use the old standard line, Hineni, here I am. Who are you, my son? And he says, I am Esav, your firstborn. Now let's just read simple pshat here. What's true and what's false about that statement? What's false is I am Esav.
Right.
But what is true is I am your firstborn. This is important to note, because later on, Esav is going to say, I am Esav, your firstborn. Wait, no, you're not. Admit the truth.
The first half is true and the second half is false.
Right.
And it speaks to what's happening here, which is that the issue is not whether you're Esav or Yaakov when it comes to receiving the blessing. The issue is whether you're the Bechor or not.
If you have
whether you are the Bechor or not, whether
Right.
you are the firstborn.
Right.
So the falsehood which Yaakov tells is in service of the true half of what he's saying. The true half of what Esav says is in service of the false which he says.
Right.
This is why this story is so complex.
So there's going to be many levels of trying to prove that if the vote was fraudulent or not. I mean, there's many ways of proving whether Yaakov was indeed Esav or not. And what
I
you
have nothing
have,
to do with that. Nothing at all.
I'm just having fun with you guys. Take it easy, everybody. Relax.
If people are not, there's no sense of humor, all right?
I know.
I heard
I'm saying.
Pardesh the other day. We were talking with one of my older students about Abraham and how he was like trying to change Mesopotamia from within. I was like, oh, he wanted to make Mesopotamia great again? And he was like, shh, shh. He's like, no, that's not funny here. It's not funny. He got all nervous.
Yeah, just everybody. Let's take it a little bit easier. I mean, there are high stakes, no doubt.
Yeah, no question.
But that's when things are funny. Hello.
I thought it was funny. Make Mesopotamia great again.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
Apparently,
anyway, there's many ways of verifying if it's indeed Yaakov or not, and so there's going to be a lot of there's going to be come closer, and he touches him, he rubs him, feels his hairy hands, kind of, and he says he brings him the food, and Esav will touch him, and he says the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esav. Yeah. I put forth to you that this is the greatest blessing that's said here. To me, this is the blessing. The real blessing is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esav. As in, you got the voice and the depth and the yearning for God and the prayer and the blessings in your voice, but you have the hands of Esav, which means hands that can get stuff done in this world. And this, to me, speaks exactly to what we'll learn next week's Torah portion, which is the latter has its head in the skies, but its feet on the ground. As in, great thoughts, yes, but still be very planted in this earth and get things done. So this is actually the same thing. Right. So he's saying to him, the voice is the voice. The best way possible is the voice of Jacob, but the hands of Esav. Okay. In any case, he did not recognize him. He asked him again, are you my son Esav? This time he says, are you not my firstborn? Are you my son Esav? And he says, it is I, Ani. All right. It's you can't whitewash this. That's what it is. Yeah. And he says, bring me the food again so that I could bless you. And he gives him the food and, of course, a little bit of wine to wash it down. And he says, come close to me and give me a kiss. And now this time he comes closer, kisses him. This is very interesting that the kiss is where it's at. And the kiss brings a kind of closeness that's not through the touch, but through the smell. And he smells his clothing and he sees that it is blessed as the blessing of the field. Vayivacheu, vayomar re'eh, si reach bni, the scent of my son, kereach sadeh, like the scent of the field, asher bercho Hashem, which God had blessed.
This is one of my favorite images in the entire Torah, because the smell that comes off of like a field after fresh rain is true ketoret. It's true incense, and I just think that I always picture that when I read this verse.
And so he's going to give him food, and he's going to get these blessings. Now, the blessings are very much about physical control in this world. Blessings of
abundance, right? Of mastery, for sure.
Right. And by the way, Saturday night, those of us that say it, there's the famous kind of verses that you say Saturday night. It's called Vayiten Lecha. That's what it's called. I like to say it. I find it very, very, very calming. And I'd like to say it's the Saturday night after Shabbos leaves, Vayiten Lecha. There's different versions of it, but it's also, you can find it in a wiki text, Vayiten Lecha. And it starts with this verse, right? It starts exactly with these blessings. And it reminds us also that those who bless you are blessed, those who curse you are cursed. And when he finished blessing Yaakov escapes stage left. He's out, right? He's like,
okay, thank you very much.
I'm out. Bye. Mic drop. See you later. I'm out of here. Okay. Boom. All right.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Yaakov has left the building. All right. And who comes in right on key, like right out of a play, out of Shakespearean play? Who comes enters stage right? Right? It is Esav, and he also brings the yummies to his father, and he says to him, and he invites him to eat. He says, "Who are you?" Because what do you mean? I am your firstborn Esav. So as you pointed out before, that's not exactly true. And then Yitzchak has a deep...
I just want to clarify. It's not a question of whether it's true or not. Each one told a lie and a truth.
Right.
The difference is that Yaakov's lie was in service of the truth, and Esav's truth is in service of the lie, because the essential piece here is who's the firstborn.
Mm-hmm. So he says, "But I am your firstborn Esav." So, but the minute he says that, the reality of the situation is clear that one way or the other, there's been trickery here.
Yep.
Well, not one way or the other. It's
only one way. There has been trickery.
It could be that the second person. Well, it could be that the second person who's coming is trying to pull off a trick. But I doubt that that's the meaning of it, because I think that once you hear the voice and the smell and the hands and the whole thing comes together, you're like, wait a minute, I understand now what happened, right? And Yitzchak has a deep charada, a deep how do you want to call it? A crisis moment.
Charada is like a moment of trembling.
A trembling.
Like, yeah.
And he says, well, however, he that hunted, he brought me food before you came, and I bless him, and he shall remain blessed. What's weird to me now that I noticed it, it says that he hunted a hunt. The hunt there is clearly not. It was not a hunt. It was from the flock. The hunt, I guess, is that he acted like a hunter.
Yeah, I'd say to a certain degree.
Right? He interesting. I don't see a Rashi there. The hunt is that the game is on.
The game is on, yes.
The game is on. The game is afoot. But when Esav heard his father's words, he yelled a bitter and loud cry. This is, to me, one of the scariest words in the Bible. I'm telling you. I get nervous when I hear this. I honestly do. Kishmo Esav et divrei aviv vayitzak tzaka gdola umara ad meod. I tell you, I actually get nervous when I hear that. I'm like, you don't want to hear an Esavian.
I mean, I think one should be nervous because in the end of the day, it's also a reality that has to be recognized. Meaning that we know not only because of what we believe, but even because of the way the story goes, that Yaakov made the right choice. In the end of the day, this was his destiny, and he was doing what needed to be done as guided by his mother. But don't kid yourself. There are consequences to these things. Esav is a real person. He's not some sort of Darth Vader fake figure that was created by the Torah in order to show you how good Yaakov is. That's why this story is presented so complex. And I think that this is a very difficult element for Am Yisrael in particular in our age to absorb, is that you can do the right thing and it can still have bad consequences.
Right.
And that might be just the way it is.
Right.
I'm not talking about the ends justifying the means. It's not what I'm going to. It's simply a reality of embodied existence. We don't live in abstract philosophical perfections where, so in order for something to be right, it must be all good. We live in a nitty-gritty, very real world in which doing the right thing is still right, even if it comes at a price.
Yeah, not everybody likes to accept that. Interestingly enough, Esav, in his anger, but still, though, I meant to say that it's scary just because,
picture.
That is a powerful man filled with rage. That's not a simple thing.
That's why the next thing Yaakov does is get out of town.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, in his anger, he lets out a truth in that tent. He says they named they named Yaakov, like this guy who follows me on the heels. He's got me 2 times. First, he took my birthright. And now he took my blessing. And notice the alliteration between Bchorati, my birthright, and Birkati or Birchati, my blessing. But you just, wait a minute, hold on, pause. Did I just hear you right? Did you just tell your father that you had, in the first place anyway, given up your birthright for a bowl of soup? You just let that little secret come out.
Yeah.
And so that's another proof, again, in the test, that Yaakov is okay and he did the right thing, because you were not. You had given up that birthright. You had given up, and now you're admitting it. In any case, he's going to demand of his father a second blessing. Yitzchak is going to balk at that, but finally give him a blessing, which is basically when your brother throws off his yoke or throws off his responsibility, then you can take over. Then you're back on top. If Yaakov is not behaving like Yaakov, then you're the firstborn, then you're the blessed one. But if he's doing his bit, then everything remains. But when the Jewish people throw off their yoke, things go very, very, they flip upside down. It becomes a nafochu.
And you'll notice it's in many ways is a clarification of the prophecy which Rivka received at the beginning of the parsha. That what's like you said, it's not clear what the Rabbi Yavod Tza'ir is. It the older is going to serve the younger, or the older is going to enslave the younger? And the answer here that we get is, well, it depends on how the younger acts.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that the ambiguity within that original prophecy was actually its accuracy, because it can go either way.
Amazing how that closes like that. And now for the third time, really the fourth time, if you think about it, let me count them. That Rivka hears again what's going on. She kind of knows where to go when it's time for her to leave her family's house in Haran. She kind of knows that. Then she demands of the truth of what's going on with the twins in her stomach. Then she overhears Yitzchak wanting to bless his son Esav, and then now she hears somehow where it says clearly that Esav spoke in his heart, saying, "I want to kill my brother Yaakov when Yitzchak is dead. I'm going to wait until Yitzchak passes away." He says in his heart, that's what Torah says to himself, I'll kill Yaakov. Somehow Rivka hears it. It says clearly, "Vayugad."
Mom always knows.
She knows, but she's an amazing character, and again a prophetess, and again now going to take an extremely bold piece of action for her beloved son, and she's going to say, she called Yaakov, and she says, "Your brother wants to kill you," and now listen again to me, because I'm telling you what to do, because I'm the catalyst of history.
Because it worked out so well last time for you.
Get up and run away to Lavan, my brother in Haran, and stay with him just a few days.
Just a little while.
This is the one thing, by the way, that Rivka ostensibly, or on the face of it, gets wrong, but we'll try to figure that out later. She says just a few days until your brother's anger subsides, and he'll forget what you did to him, not me, but what you did to him, right? And I'll take you from there. I really feel in my heart that the meaning of that is that with prayer, God will call you, but I will be praying for you to come back home. Why should I lose both of you on the same day? That could mean one of two things. Either since Esav wants to kill you on the day that Yitzchak dies, so I'll lose Yitzchak and I'll use Yaakov also. That's probably the meaning of it. Or the Medrash will take it to, you guys are going to actually die both on the same day. You will be buried on the same day, actually in the tomb of the ancestors in Hebron. Esav will lose his head and Yaakov will be buried that day. And they say that they were basically buried on the same day. In any case, Rivka keeps going. She's not done yet. She goes to Yitzchak. They're still friends. Nothing happened. And she says, if Yaakov marries one of the local girls, there's no purpose in my life because my whole life is for his proper continuation. So Yitzchak is going to bless Yaakov and send him on his way. And he says, go to Padan Aram, the house of Betuel, take a wife from the daughters of Lavan, and the Hashem, which is the God of fertility, El Shaddai Yevarech Otcha V'Yafrecha V'Yarbecha V'Yita L'Kahal Amim V'Yitan Lecha Et Birkat Avraham Lecha L'Zarecha Itcha L'Rishtecha Et Eretz Megorecha Asher Natan Elohim LaAvraham. This is also in the V'Yitan Lecha that we say Saturday night, and again the V'Yitan Lecha is here. Also these words that Hashem, that may you be fruitful and multiply, and become many nations. And God should give you the blessing of Abraham, you and to your seed, to inherit the land of your sojourns, which God gave to Abraham. And indeed, and that's basically it. And indeed, Yaakov is going to go to he's going to in the next Torah portion. We'll see that he's leaving. Yeah, he's on the road. He begins his on the roadness. He was a tent dweller, no longer. He's going to be on the road now, on the road for basically the rest of his life. And that's where we're going to get to. Just one chiddush I wanted to tell you of, Mike, just one tiny thing, is I was very concerned with why does the Torah use the term Padan Aram as opposed to Aram Naharaim and all this kind of stuff. So I was doing a lot of research yesterday with also my mentor, Noam Arnon, in Hebron. And basically, check out what I figured out. The word Padan means field. Mm-hmm. And it's actually supposed to be another way of saying in Akkadian Haran was also Padan. Padan, Haran, like the same place. But in any case, in this week's Torah portion, the word field appears 5 times, and the word Padan or Padena, Aram, appears 5 times. Okay, there's 5 times this kind of field, not 5 times this kind of field. There's either a blessing or a curse. You're going to stay in this land, or you're going to have to go to the outside of the land of Israel. And there's this scent of the field, but that scent also is through a trickery, and that speaks of the Padan aspect of the field. And so there's a tension between those two kinds of fields that you're playing in, and from here on, Yaakov is going to go for a long time to the exile, to outside of the land of Israel.
Chazak. Well, I think it's time for me to be on the road as well.
I really want to appreciate very much your time today, Rav Mike, and I want to really bless you for a prohibition pickle. Okay, this Shabbat, I know that you have a very special kiddush. You have a very special Kiddush every Shabbat. And so I want people
Hashem.
to help you have that Kiddush by checking out Prohibition Pickle and sending it to anybody.
Help Chaim. I would just be happy to be the vehicle for you to help.
That's right. Chaim he's going to do great. There's no question
He's
about
fantastic.
that. And thank you very much for joining me for Parsha Toldot, which is super dramatic. Do you agree with me? It's like, wow.
It is definitely drama at its finest.
If there's a protagonist and an antagonist, it's in this Torah portion.
For sure.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleischer Show. Rav Mike Feuer. Join me, RavMikeFeuer.com and JewishStory.co. Teachers at Pardes. And thank you for joining me. And we have more great stuff on the Yishai Fleischer Show today, including an NPR-like interview that you are going to really enjoy about why everything you wanted to know about the settlements. That's right, quote-unquote settlements. That was really fun stuff. So you can hear that on the podcast, which is Yishai Fleischer at Podbean, or, of course, our host at the Land of Israel Network.com, where the Jewish Story is as well, and many other great shows. I want to thank everybody for being with us. Let me just take a second to say hi to Lou Weiss, who's always with us. Thank you so much. God bless you, Lou, for health and the success. Miriam says, boo hiss. Who would have guessed the lengths of the hanky-panky? Back to the other discussion that we had before. Erica says, shalom from Sweden. Sweden, right? Yes, or Switzerland. I think it's Switzerland. Sorry. Joe says, why do a lot of Jews relate to America as Esav when America is mostly based on idolatry? I don't know what he means by that. What do you think he means by that?
I can't.
Yeah, you're done. All right, that's right. Just one last one. Hi from the Philippines by Kay, and Erica Nordstrom says again, shalom to your rabbis. Nice sound and background. I'm already hungry. All right, folks, more great stuff is on the way. Thank you for joining us. Lots of love and blessings from the land of blessings, and shalom.